I would never go back to broccoli or cauliflower or cabbage. It terrifies me.
Priscilla, how did you find carnivore?
Well, I guess like a lot of us, Dave, I started on the keto side of things. I was doing keto for about 3 years and thought I was being very successful at my keto lifestyle. I discovered keto because I hit the dreaded perimenopause and put on 20 kilos. And I knew for me, keto would work because everyone told me you're never hungry. And I'm one of those people who is constantly hungry. So I started my keto journey kind of just Googling, YouTubing, asking as many questions as I could of people who had dabbled. I had tried it once before, but I didn't realize how low carb I had to get. So I never actually got into ketosis the first time. Second time, I figured it out and I managed to kickstart my weight loss pretty well. I'd lost around 12, 13 kilos on keto. And because I'd been doing it for 3 years, I thought I knew all there was to know about it. As we often do, you don't think you can learn anything. I was very mistaken. I loved my green veg, so keto was okay for me. I loved, all those lovely broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage kind of veg. Giving up the other veg didn't bother me at all. I had an issue with my daughter's stomach. She started having gut issues, and we took her along to see a gut specialist, and he asked me if I'd ever had any problems with my gut. And of course, I've always had problems with my gut, but because I've always had problems with my gut, I didn't actually add 2 and 2 together until he asked me the question. And as soon as he said that to me, something just went kind of ka-ching. And I realized for a very long time I had gut issues. And so I started to look at the carnivore lifestyle through different eyes, because previous to that, I never, ever thought I'd be able to give up the things that I was having on my keto lifestyle to go fully carnivore. What happened for me was I hit Christmas last year. I indulged in my last keto meal, which was a huge plate of pork and cabbage and bacon, which is my absolute favorite keto dish. And I suffered with so much pain. My gut was so uncomfortable because I didn't cook the cabbage for long enough because I was hungry. And so I immediately realized I needed to try this carnivore thing. But I guess like a lot of us, I thought it was a bit bonkers initially. I thought there's no way I could do carnivore and be successful and be healthy and give up the things that I had already thought I'd given up, doing the keto lifestyle. So I thought, okay, I'm going to give it just 7 days. I'm going to see what happens with 7 days. So I started last year on the 27th of December. So I'm almost at my carniversary, which I can't believe. And I got the first 2 days in, and it was one of those moments where, and I'm sure most of us do that, when you're eating a carnivore way of life, that you question what you're doing constantly in your head. So I kept asking myself these questions about, do you think this is sensible? And of course, everyone's family, I'm sure, asks the exact same questions. And my family thought I was totally nuts for deciding to go carnivore. So I got to day 2 and thought, wow, I've actually got to day 2. Like here I am nearly 365 days later. And then I got to day 3 and a strange kind of metamorphosis happened with my stomach. And that was, it wasn't sticking out. It didn't look like it was 5 months pregnant, and it wasn't giving me any discomfort. Now, for a job, I'm a personal trainer and massage therapist. And so this is maybe TMI, but I don't know if you've had a massage recently, Dave, where your head is right at the end of the bed and your therapist's body is particularly close to your head. And so for me, being that close to anybody's ears, having a stomach that's gurgling, and sometimes like farting like right next to my clients' heads, or if I picked up a heavy weight, Like, it was just a nightmare. So day 3, I realized that sense of discomfort just wasn't happening anymore, and my stomach wasn't making a noise. So by day 6, I realized that maybe I should go longer than 7 days. And so I think everyone kind of looked at me and my family like I was going bonkers. But for me, by the end of day 7, it was cemented that I was going to do 30 days. And a lot of people just do that 30 days in January, World Carnivore Month. So I then moved on from my 7th day to get to, 2 weeks. And it was so clear. It was like everything just lifted off me as to how I felt about my body. And this clarity came over me that all this time I'd been told the completely wrong thing about how my body needed to be fueled. Being a personal trainer, I was always like, well, you have to have carbohydrates to be able to exercise. You can't get through a day without carbohydrates. And then when I went into the keto sphere, I realized that wasn't necessarily true. But the difference between keto and carnivore for me was just letting go of that last little bit of veg and realizing I was going to survive that. Also, it made me realize just how carb addicted I still truly was. I was using, keto treats as a bit of a crutch to get through into that ketosis, not fully letting go. And of course, with carnivore, there's no crutches, there's no treats, there's none of that. And so that really allowed me to move fully into that no carb life with not too much trouble. And I feel amazing for it. So here we are, nearly 365 days later.
Wow, that's awesome. And you know something? Your anniversary date is going to stick in my mind permanently because that's my birthday.
Yay!
So it's very easy to remember.
There you go.
You're coming up on 1 year. Do you think being keto first kind of helped you with the transition?
Oh, totally. Honestly, I probably wouldn't have been able to do it if I hadn't have gone keto first, because we're just brainwashed into thinking we need all of those foods. And so keto allowed me to dump a whole lot. For me, and as an Australian, the biggest problem that I had was no fruit. Coming up to this time of the year, and the one thing that's made me realize I'm completely free of carb addiction is our shopping right now. Our shopping centers and our food stores are full to the brim of the things that I would have absolutely loved for Christmas, like cherries, mangoes, raspberries, strawberries, all the seasonal fruits that we love at Christmas time in Australia. And I initially thought I might struggle this year not having them. But when I saw my first mango in our shopping centre here, I just kind of looked at it. There wasn't that sensation that, oh my God, there's a mango. I don't know if you understand that, Dave. I'm not sure if you were a fruit eater. But for me, that was such a treat. And so that's when I realised I was fully not carb addicted anymore.
I've never been much into fruit, but
Right.
I'm just trying to imagine that scene when you saw your first mango, and it was like, "Sorry, mate, we're going to have to break up."
It was really bizarre to me because I would never have classed myself as a sweet eater. I would always have said, even from a young child, if you give me a bowl of potato chips, I would rather have them than a bowl of lollies. I was just that person. But it's not until those things are completely taken away that you realize actually they do have a hold on your life,
So how are your family now? I mean, are they still
Well,
thinking you're insane, or?
a lot of my family still thinks I'm bonkers, but the changes in my body in the last 12 months have been so marked for them. Even though I've only gone from 13 kilos off to 20 kilos off, that last 7 kilos has done so much to my body that they are now seeing the evidence of what a healthy lifestyle should look like. My face is, I've got a carnivore face now. I had a very inflamed, puffy face previously that has gone, you know, I'm 53 this year and I'm the fittest and strongest that I've ever been in my life. And so I think the evidence is there. So even if they take the mick out of me a little bit, they understand why I've done what I'm doing, you know.
And so, has anyone in your immediate family been tempted to give it a try?
My husband has just recently said to me, and it was a laughable moment because he's having some digestion issues. And he said to me, I don't want to tell you this. You know, it's one of those moments where you don't want to be proven wrong. He said, but the best I feel is when I have steak and chicken wings. So I don't think he'd ever fully convert, but I think he has much more of an understanding of how I feel and the benefits that I'm feeling than he did, say, 6 months ago, which is fantastic because he doesn't jibe me about it anymore. You know, the craziness of just having chunks of butter, Dave, it's crazy in my head still. I kind of think this is a bit bonkers. And I'm sure them seeing me eat that way, they think I'm bonkers, but they're more settled with me eating that way than they were when I first started, I think, which is great.
You've had this weight loss. What else has improved for you in the year you've been carnivore?
Well, I have absolutely no joint pain whatsoever. I was having problems with my elbows and my knees, and that's completely gone. I hit my pillow, Dave, and I am asleep within about probably 12 minutes, which is an absolute miracle for a menopausal female. I sleep so solidly and I wake up with the birds, which annoys me, but I don't feel like I'm deprived of sleep because I feel quite fresh at that time. So I'm getting up probably an hour earlier than I was previous to carnivore. Even keto, I wasn't enjoying my sleep like I am now. I sleep so soundly that I don't hear my daughter come in at night, which for a mother is kind of frightening, actually. But I just sleep through all of that and I wake up feeling like I've had a full night's sleep, which is so valuable to me because I know how important that is from a health and wellness perspective. But I just feel so much better. Also, I don't want to kill anybody anymore, which is amazing. I am taking HRT for my menopausal symptoms or my perimenopausal symptoms. That is the only medication I take. And I take that because I have a small level of violence most days. And so that keeps that down. But also I've heard people talk about the carnivore calm. And I really do think that that's something that's been a real benefit for me. It sounds weird, but I feel like I'm on a low level of weed all the time. Like I'm just a little bit stoned all the time, which is great for me, you know?
Yeah, I really like that feeling of being able to, you're almost able to step back and look at everything as if you're watching it in a movie rather than being
100%.
involved in that. Yeah.
It's like I'm watching everything through a goldfish bowl where I'm like just swimming around and around, having a lovely time, and nothing outside of that. I see it, but I don't get wound up about it like I used to. I don't worry about things that I can't fix anymore, you know?
And it's a whole different level when you get to that point where you just go, I'm just not going to care about this anymore.
That's the horrible thing. I feel like I don't care about it anymore, but it's great at the same time. I feel like I can just, it's weird actually. I had some blood tests about 6 months ago. This is going to sound strange. It's almost like I've become a bit more blokey. I've become a bit more like, no, it's, I'm more chill about things than I ever have been. And actually, my blood tests have shown that my testosterone levels have risen in the last 6 months, and my sex hormones have risen quite strangely. So I'm putting that down to carnivore, actually.
So just to clarify for the audience, because about 60% or 70% of the audience is from North America.
Right.
So what can you explain what blokey means?
So, so I've been able to embrace my masculine side, and I'm very feminine, but I've been able to embrace my masculine side. You know, my husband doesn't worry about the things that I used to worry about. He would kind of always go, "Oh, don't worry, it'll be fine." And that was never how I was, but I'm more like that now. So that's what I mean about being more blokey. I'm able to be more masculine. I think that is just a bit more chilled, you know. I'm just a bit more chilled out.
Yeah, interesting. So, how how are you eating right now?
So because I was intermittent fasting on keto, I tend to intermittent fast all bar I have some butter in the morning just to get me through, because I sometimes struggle with getting enough fat in my diet. Not because I don't like it, it's just one of those things I have to think about. And I don't tend to particularly like really fatty meat. I'm not a great fan of ribeyes, or we call them Scotch fillets over here. I think that's what you would recognize them as. I don't mind Wagyu, but I don't like a big chunk of fat in my meat. So I do have to be very conscious of adding in fat to make my energy levels okay, and my satiety, because I eat lean. And also I don't tend to eat big meals, so I only eat twice a day, but I do start my day with a tablespoon of butter, just with a black decaf coffee. And I used to put the butter in the coffee, but I actually prefer the butter just cut up like little cheese cubes, nice and cold. I'll have that and then have my coffee. And then I get to about 11 o'clock, and that's when I have my first meal. And then I like to eat before 7 if I can at nighttime, and that's where I'm at now. I don't know. Sometimes I think I could maybe add another meal in just to help with that maintenance phase, which is where I'm at now. You know, I don't really want to lose any more weight, and the hardest thing for me has always been maintenance. I've always been able to lose weight, but staying at that weight's always been difficult. So I'm learning how to do that within the carnivore lifestyle now. So I don't know whether I need to add another meal, but I'm pretty good weight wise. I go up and down about half a kilo most weeks. So some weeks up half a kilo, some weeks down half a kilo. So I think what I'm doing now is kind of working for me.
And that's basically, once you lost that weight, you just stuck around that for the majority of the year.
So I started losing weight immediately going on to carnivore. So I'd gotten to a homeostasis with keto. I thought that's where I was going to stay. I ended up at about 65 kilos, and I'd come from 78. So I was happy with that. I then slowly started losing a little bit more weight once I went into carnivore, and then it just took off, and I lost like 5 kilos really quickly without even trying. So without changing too much, then, you know, as I started is how I eat now, but it all of a sudden just took off. So I'm at this weight now, and I've been this weight for about 3 months now.
And sorry, that's about 60.
So now I'm about 57 kilos, 57 and a half
57.
kilos. Yeah.
So that's about 125 pounds. And how
Yeah.
tall are you?
5'3".
5'3". Okay.
Yeah, so I'm just about right for my, you know, if you get on the whole BMI thing, you know, BMI of 21, I'm kind of right where I should be, in the middle of where I should be, really.
Yeah. I think you're kind of around this, probably about the same BMI as me. I'm a little bit heavier and a little bit taller,
Right.
and I think we'd both pass our physical in Japan, you know, because
Yes.
they have lower thresholds, so we'd
Yeah,
both
I bet
pass
they
that.
do, yeah.
Yeah. So does anyone around you, like friends or co-workers, ever say to you, "Look, this is pretty good. What's going on here?
They
What are
do.
you doing?"
Yeah, they do. But I don't know if you've had the same experience, Dave. I just think carnivore is so overwhelming that when you start it, like when I'm speaking to somebody, and that's really why, you know, I'm here tonight, because I want to be able to share what we're doing with the community. And I don't know how much you see of what's going on in Australia, but I still see lots of negative press where carnivores are involved, even keto, but carnivores, you know, Australians just do not do carnivore generally. There's not a lot of us. So I don't find there's a huge support network around the carnivore community really in Australia. So the reason that I'm here doing this is because I think we should really know about that. I just think that we should all help get the point across. At the same time, I don't know if you feel the same. A lot of the people that I follow on the socials have had massive weight loss, like massive. And I'm so inspired by them. But sometimes it's hard for me to kind of feel like I can connect with them because I feel like a bit of a cheat because I've only lost 20 kilos, if you know what I mean. I feel like my story's not that impressive because I've only lost 20 kilos. I haven't lost 50 kilos, 100 kilos, 200 kilos like I see. So I don't know how much I can actually share with the community, but I'm so happy to pass my knowledge on. And I think we all connect to people in our own way, and you've got to find somebody like yourself who you can connect with, that you can help get that point across. But when I talk to people about carnivore, I hear myself speaking and I worry that they're going to think I'm crazy because it just still in my head, although I know how fantastic, it's like I've turned into a you know, fully born again Christian, or, you know, the biggest salesperson I've ever come across in my life. And I don't want to come across as that person, you know, who people cross the street to miss, you know.
I always feel like when I start talking about it with someone new, they're going to look at me like, okay, well, yeah, he's going to ask me to come to a church service with him, or he's going to invite me to an Amway meeting.
100%. And you can see that look. You can see when I start telling them, because it's disbelief actually, when I start telling them, oh, you know, I'm very, very low carb, and they go, well, what do you mean? I say, well, I don't have any fruit or any vegetables or any pasta or rice or potatoes or bread. And they do look at you. You can see it in their eyes. It's like when a shark's about to bite you, you know, it kind of closes over. And you know you've kind of lost them in that moment. And then they say, oh, I could never do that. Like, and so many people do say that. I've never had one person say to me, can you help me? Because I would be so happy to help somebody. Oh, that's a lie. I've had one person and she was so dedicated, and I kept trying to tell her the importance of electrolytes in the first few weeks, months, because she was coming straight from the standard Australian American diet. She hadn't come from a keto space. And I kept telling her she had to have electrolytes. And I just don't think she got it. And she started to get a bit frightened because she was having heart palpitations. Those things do frighten you if you don't. And I kept explaining, you know, this is, your electrolytes are low, you need to add more salt. But she lasted about 3 weeks. She tried so hard. But I would love my only little carnivore cult. I would love them.
So you made me think about a couple of things there where when you were talking, like when you mentioned that, you know, the eyes glaze over and it's like there's about to be a shark attack, you know. It's like I'm sure running through their mind is, you know, well, it's not just when I get on a plane I need to check where the exits are, you know.
100%. You can see them looking at you. You can see it, can't you? It's like, oh my God, this person is crazy. But like, I'm sure all of your family and friends, all of my family and friends, the evidence is right in front of them. They can see, you know, people have said to me, what are you doing? But they cannot get around their minds, especially in our Ozempic world. You know, it's just taken off here in Australia. I'm sure people think I'm doing Ozempic and just lying about being on the carnivore diet. You know, it's you can see that I'm really just eating meat. That's all you're doing. So I can see that as well. But I do see them give me that, you know, when they agree with you and you go, right, okay. Like, so I get a lot of that.
I've always wondered if there's a softer way to introduce it, like, saying, you know what keto is?
Yeah,
And they say, yeah. And you say, okay, do keto for a month and then cut out anything that's got a carbohydrate in it.
yeah.
But then, see, the issue is that most people, even if they're just doing keto, most people don't actually understand what's a carbohydrate.
Oh my God.
And like, they don't know how to read a label to find out what.
It's unbelievable. I see so many people say to me, I'm doing low carb. And they then say to me, I'm only having 2 pieces of sourdough bread. That's all I'm having. I'm like, and I guess you could consider that low carb if you had come from a high carb diet. But so many people do not understand where their carbohydrates come from. And even the things that I used to really love, like tomatoes and onions and those vegetables that were a little sweeter, pumpkin, they still have so many carbohydrates in them if you were trying to go low carb. And it sneaks in there, let alone the things that are low carb that aren't really low carb. So I totally understand why people are confused, but it really is that, like you say, we need a softer landing pad for them. And everyone now knows what keto is, but I still find people are frightened of keto even because they know what they have to give up and they're addicted. That's the problem.
Well, yeah, that is that. I think that's the fundamental issue there. They know what they have to give up,
That's right.
and yeah. Um, so you mentioned something else before that I wanted to touch on, which was, you said you feel like you feel kind of a bit weird because you've quote unquote only lost, you know,
Yeah.
7 kilos or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think this is part of the reason that I want to have as many different people on and as many different stories on as possible, because when you've only got the stories about, well, I lost 5 bazillion kilos in two
Yeah.
weeks on carnivore kind of thing. Um, People watch that and that maybe gets people clicking through and whatever. But when they watch it, they go, yeah, it looks good, but that's not going to work for me.
Yeah.
Because it's like when they're watching the stories on Oprah or those daytime shows, it's always an amazing story.
That's
And,
right.
and like you say, they don't have someone they can relate to there. It's like, yeah, I'm not going to starve myself and get to this point ever.
Yeah.
I've tried so many diets in the past. So I think, yeah, um, by having a vast cross section of people on, hopefully, someone is going to be there, as you say, that they can relate to, and also hopefully with enough interviews, people get an understanding that most of the people that come on, even when they lose half their body weight, they look at it and go, they say, you know, I got all these benefits from carnivore. And even though the weight loss is the headlining thing here, weight loss was the secondary issue.
Oh, if you said to me, Priscilla, I'm going to give you your 7 kilos back, but you could stay feeling the way you do right now, I would take those 7 kilos right back, hand on heart, because what carnivore has done for my digestion, my mental clarity, my physicality far outweighs any weight loss. And don't get me wrong, I love having 7 kilos off. It's great, but it wasn't about the weight loss for me, the move from keto to carnivore. It was about how I felt. And as soon as I realized the benefits of carnivore for me, there was no going back. Like, it went from 7 days to 1 month to nearly a year. And I cannot see myself eating any differently. And now, don't get me wrong, I have rules for myself. When I go out for a meal, if there is something that I want to eat on the menu that is not carnivore, I ask myself the question how much I want it. And I don't go out for a meal very often I'm not just talking, to the RSL club. I'm talking about a big meal or an expensive meal if I'm taken to a nice restaurant. And 9 times out of 10, I can always just stay carnivore. But if there is something on that menu that I want to try, like nothing crazy, but like a little fruit, like a pear on the side of a piece of cheese, or if I want to have that, I will, because I'm not a robot. but it's the only time ever in my life, and I've had weight ups and downs all my life, where I do not sabotage myself and fall off the wagon. I'm completely able to get straight back onto my way of eating and appreciate the flavor and texture of that mouthful of pear without giving myself any guilt whatsoever. But I'm straight back onto carnivore immediately the next meal. And I think that's a testament of how good carnivore makes me feel, because I've never been able to do that before.
That's nice. Yeah. I haven't ventured that far in. I've only gone as far as adding vegetables back in because keto, when I was keto and I had anything sweet or, anything exotic into my diet, I always kind of, went down
Yeah.
the avalanche of, but I'm pretty sure carnivore would keep me a lot more stable,
Yeah. Really does.
Um, yeah. The only issue I've found is even adding a vegetable back, pain comes back instantly.
I actually I'm finished for Christmas now, and I had one piece of green tomato on the weekend because I went to a beautiful restaurant, and I had a beautiful Wagyu steak, and I had beef tongue. Like, it was great for carnivore, pickled beef tongue. I had anchovies. I had an absolutely amazing meal. But I've lost my train of thought now. Perimenopause is coming there.
The green
Oh,
tomato.
the green tomato. The green tomato was on as a side dish. And I had one piece of green tomato. And the very next day at work, I could feel my elbows were and I was like, oh, I must be tired. But I'd remembered that I'd had the green tomato. And of course, there you go. So, and it actually didn't even taste nice. I had it because I haven't had it for a long time. But I didn't have that sensation of really enjoying the flavor of it, and I copped it the next day. So, but just 24 hours and it was gone. So that was good. Thank goodness.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's actually, in some ways, it's great kind of reinforcement. It's a great thing to kind of get that shock and go, that's why I can't go back to this.
100%. Like, I'm terrified.
Yeah.
I mean, I say I had a little bit of veg, so green tomato, one slice. I would never go back to broccoli or cauliflower or cabbage. It terrifies me because I know, A, I can't just have a little bit of that. And B, I know it's going to double me over in pain. I know how I used to feel. And, being away from it for nearly 12 months, I know that it would slaughter me. I would have so much trouble in the gut area. It's just not worth it for me,
So if someone does talk to you about how do I get started, what do I do, how would you describe it to them in the most kind of non-threatening way?
Oh, that's a tough question, Dave. That is a tough question. I think I would say just try it for a day. Try and take everything apart from animal products out of your meal, out of your daily requirements for a day, and see how that strikes you. See if you can do it. See if you can do another day the next day. And I'm hoping by day 3 that they would start to see the benefits, because it was that quick for me. I don't know if it was that quick for you, but really for me, it was 3 days. And I think if you got to 3 days, you would see what I was seeing, you would see what I was feeling. And then I would hope that you could then come back to me and go, okay, I know what you're talking about. Can you really help me now? And I'd be, yes, I can. Please move in with me. I will share my life with you.
I really like this idea. And, this is going to turn into a little bit more of a brainstorming session than an interview. Yeah. But I wonder what you think about this, just adding on to your idea there. I wonder if you were to say to them, okay, do this. This is only for a day. What you need to do is, let's say you're going to do it on Monday. Get up Monday morning, and I want you to write down exactly how you feel as you wake up on that Monday morning. Like, feel, to use an Australianism, I feel rough as guts. Don't want to go to work.
Yeah.
Don't want to go to work. Feeling tired. Feeling this. Feeling that. Back sore. Whatever it is. Right. Everything you're feeling, and then just try carnivore for one day. And then when you get up on Tuesday morning, write down exactly how you feel and then compare them. And
Yeah.
then based on that comparison, decide if you want to do day two.
Yeah.
And that
And I
might
think
be a kind
proportionately,
of self-reinforcing way of getting them to do it.
100%. I think I have less problems talking to men about it. I don't know if you speak predominantly more to men than women, because the idea of bacon and eggs, they love that. Like, you know, where women, we're so indoctrinated about what we're supposed to eat, and you shouldn't sit down to a big plate of steak or bacon and eggs for breakfast because you're going to get fat. You know, it's those different mindsets as well. Generally, I find men much more open to it than women. I don't get the eye roll from men. I get the, maybe I could do that. But women, definitely not. So I would have to approach it differently with them, I think. I would have to do that gentle holding of their hand and just saying, let's do this a day at a time and see how you feel. But more women have gut problems than men do. So I don't quite understand why they can't get their head around it. And they'll say to me, oh yeah, God, is that from food? I'm like, yes, it's from food, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you mean, the difference between men and the women, because when you actually look at it, like you and I are about the same age. Remember
Yep.
when we were growing up on TV, there was like the ads for special with the lady with red high heels on and
Oh,
stuff. And
keto
it's like
lady,
all of that stuff was really targeted at women.
100%.
And so, girls that grew up in that time, I mean, it just feels so foreign to them to go, yeah, okay, I'll just eat some bacon and eggs Monday to Friday. It's
I mean, we never would have done it. I could tell you as a teenager exactly how many calories were in everything I ate. Now, the freedom to not have to count a calorie, you know, that for me, and I guess I've got that freedom because I'm comfortable with my weight now, and I don't overeat. I'm not an overeater in carnivore. I certainly was when I was carb addicted. I never had a hunger signal. It never went away. It was never satiated. Where carnivore, I know when I'm full and I know when I'm hungry. So I don't have to think about calories, and the freedom of that. I don't have to think about being so starving that my sugar has gone through the roof. I'm hangry. I've got the shakes. That just does not happen for me at all now. And it was a thing that I live with every day.
I'm so happy to hear how well you're doing with this, Priscilla, and also, about your anniversary coming up and such a special date.
For you as
Um,
well, Dave.
so, is there any way that people can reach out to you? Do you have an Instagram or a YouTube or anything?
I have a YouTube. It's Carnivore Sill on YouTube.
Carnivore Phil,
Carnivore Sill, Cill.
Sil,
Yep.
Cill. Okay.
Yep. And the same on Instagram.
Okay. No worries. Well, I'll link to those below.
And happy to help
And
anybody, Dave, if they've got any questions that they might think that I can answer. Look, as long as they realize I'm not crazy and I'm here to help the whole carnivore community, happy to help.
that's awesome. Thank you so much for your time, Priscilla, and thank you for sharing your story with us.
You're so welcome, Dave.